All right, hello everyone. Now let's see, do I have that clicker somewhere? Or is it here? Ah, there it is. Okay, ooh, that room is not completely full. Everybody got stuck at lunch or went to other forums. Here we were thinking that the future of payments was going to interest everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Florence. I head up our commerce partnerships at Google for the EMEA region. I also look more specifically after the payments piece of the work that we do. And I've been asked today to give you a glimpse at the future of payments, which seems to be getting quite some attention these days. It seems to finally be getting exciting. It didn't always used to be. So maybe before we delve into the future of payments, we should look at the history of payments. And with that, I will try an audience participation question just to see if you're digesting your lunch. Does anybody here know when the first coin was minted? Any guesses from the audience? Oh, go on.
2000 BC.
2000 BC we've got. All right, any other guesses? No? Go on. Give us a go. What about my colleagues? Do they know? Anybody else? All right, no guesses from you. I think you're all digesting lunch. It is actually 600 BC. And it's actually King Aliatis of Lydia, which is present-day Turkey, that actually came up with the first gold coin. There it is. It's quite a nice coin with a big lion head on top. What's interesting is it took over 2,000 more years before we had the first paper currency. And that's a bit debatable who exactly started that off. But it was around 1650, 1680. And from there, technology did pick up a little bit more. Move on to 1946, and in the US, the first charge card was created, and that charge card enabled people to pay at the end of the month. And from there, Bank of America was the first bank that created the credit card. So the US was really driving quite a lot of innovation in this space. But fast forward to 1990, what we see here is the advent of e-commerce. This is when Amazon was all about buying books. Do you remember that? And we also saw the arrival of PayPal. December 1998, PayPal revolutionized how we pay online and really spurred online commerce. Now, 2007, the first contactless card was created. In the UK, it was in 2008 that the first card emerged. And around 2010, 2011, everybody was talking about how mobile payments would revolutionize everything. That's also when Google Wallet came out, if anybody remembers that. So needless to say, it did not revolutionize anything that quickly. Move on to today, 2013 to today, and we see a very interesting ecosystem. What we're seeing is, of course, quite a few payment companies from the US, ourselves included. You've got Samsung, you've got Apple. But what you're also seeing is some really interesting drivers of innovation that are coming from completely different parts of the world. So Alipay, WeChat Pay, I haven't mentioned it here, but M-Pesa. And so this is a perfect example of how the technological pace is increasing, but it's also driving a lot of disruption. And many of these regions are driving innovations and leapfrogging, leaving some other regions behind, quite frankly. And that's what we've also seen in our experience rolling out Google Pay across multiple markets. So, what does this mean for mobile payments? Well, we all know that mobile is huge. You've probably seen these numbers again and again. We interact with our phones a scary amount of times per day, 150, there it is. You'll see stats bombarded about how many times users are using their mobile to check up products, to look up reviews, to compare prices. But, and this is the real challenge that we face, less than 10% of users are using mobile to pay. Now, 2 years ago, when I presented this stat, that was actually 4%. So we're improving. We're more than doubled, which is good to see. But it's still so little compared to what people are doing with their mobiles today. And so there is this payment gap that we really have to bridge. Now, the question is, why? Why do we want to bridge it? And this is where I come to our mission statement. So some of you may have heard of our mission statement. We have a very broad one, and that is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful for our users. I hope some of you have heard that mission statement. Anyway, it's a very broad mission statement. It will keep us busy for a long time. But for the users who are looking for something and wish to transact, and many do, and they will use Google as that first point, we want to offer a seamless commerce experience. And never before have we had as many retailers coming to us and asking us how they can also make the most of some of the innovations that we're driving. So what we're seeing is really, and this is why we created Google Pay, we're really seeing this opportunity of users that come to us, many of them who are uploading payment credentials to Google when they buy things on the Play Store, when they buy things over YouTube, subscriptions and so forth. And what we're trying to do is really leveraging that and making it possible in the back end, with lots of heavy lifting, to populate those payment credentials across all of Google's properties, but also across all of this third-party ecosystem of partners that we work with in order to provide for this seamless commerce experience. And when we talk about seamless commerce experience, we talk about paying in store, which is 80% of all transactions still today, if you take the average. Some countries it changes, it's a bit lower, sometimes it's a bit higher. But it's also about paying online. It's about paying in every conceivable situation, on desktop, on your mobile, in an app, in transit, when you're taking the tube. It's about paying even if you're up in the air. So it really is that seamless commerce experience that we're looking for. Now, this is the culmination of a lot of lessons learned. And I liked Beth, for those of you who were here this morning, Beth was talking about how we have to drive change and how we have to learn from our mistakes. I'd say we had a lot of lessons learned at Google developing payments. And some of the biggest lessons learned have been that we really have to focus on what we do best. And for us, we learned, for example, that we had to leverage the cloud. So Google Pay leverages the cloud. We used to, with Google Wallet, leverage SIM-based solutions. Absolutely not our DNA. The other lesson learned that we had is really how we position ourselves as partners. And so we are good at building ecosystems and allowing access to those ecosystems. And that's why with Google Pay, you have a series of APIs that our partners make the most of. It actually means that we can't do much, we can't roll out this type of solution if we don't have involvement from our partners. We completely rely on our banking partners to actually agree to work with us to provision cards, for example, or other forms of payment. They can access APIs that integrate into their own banking apps so that they can make the most of not only in-store NFC-driven payments, but also online payments, one-click payments, as we say, and they can therefore maintain their client relationships. But we also offer APIs to merchants, merchants who are looking to drive greater engagement by, for example, distributing offers, loyalty, or other valuables. Merchants who are also looking to speed up the checkout flow online with a one- or two-click checkout experience. And so those APIs, you'll see them across Google. We've got APIs around the Assistant, obviously the Android platform, but much, much more. And that has been the major lesson learned. The good news is, as an ecosystem partner, we work with so many partners, and we see some of the innovation that's being driven. And that has been quite fantastic. So what are the innovations that we're seeing in payments? Well, the first one is this whole concept of making payments simple. And by simple, even better is invisible. The perfect example of this is Uber. It's incredible. The whole journey, that whole pain point of actually having to pay is taken away. And that really is the ultimate objective, to make that simple journey for the user. Now, sometimes it isn't as invisible as Uber, but more and more retailers are making it extremely simple to check out, whether it's in store or online. And that doesn't mean that it has to be unsafe, quite the contrary. So with Uber, for example, I, as a user, can go check what my journey was. I can contest if I'm not pleased with it. I can ask for discounts. I can do all sorts of things. In fact, we work with Uber. Many of Uber's customers want a safer payment experience. They work with us because one of the features that we offer is what we call tokenization, where the actual card details are never transmitted. It's a token that is. So we can keep it simple. We can make it invisible. We can also make it safe. But beyond that, we can create more seamless experiences. And by seamless, we're talking about all the other value-added services that you can bring to your customers. So whether that's actually offering offers that are geo-localized, that you can pick up as a user when you're passing by the store, whether it's making the most of your loyalty card, redeeming points, or whether it's taking the tube and having a wonderful experience where you're told, hey, you forgot to tap out, do this, or you could actually use your phone and you don't have to queue at the booth. These are the kinds of experiences we're talking about. The experience that you see here on this slide is an experience that Vueling has actually developed, and it's really very simple. Not only is the payment simpler, they've integrated a host of different payment solutions, including ours, but they've also offered a user the ability to download their boarding pass. And along with that boarding pass, you can do other things. You can actually use this as an engagement channel to actually ask your user, would you like to have an upgrade? Would you like to choose your seat? Would you like to check in your luggage? So there are cross-channel, cross-selling opportunities that emerge with this as well. Moving on, who here has used the Starbucks app to order a coffee ahead? Raise your hands. A few. All right, this is definitely a US phenomenon. I'm not from the US, I am French, but I have a strange accent, I know. This is probably going to be rolling out much more prominently here. Starbucks actually came up with an app that allows you to order ahead in the US around 2017. And it's beautifully designed. And there's been a lot of press around how popular it's been. It's been so popular that it actually created quite a bit of disruption in the Starbucks stores because so many people were actually ordering ahead that the poor people in store couldn't actually create coffee fast enough. So it was a good problem to have, and one that they looked into fixing very quickly, as you can imagine. But what Starbucks has done is this perfect combination of offering faster payment, of course, seamless, invisible payment, but also delivering that value. And that value comes in convenience, because you don't have to queue up, but it also comes in the rewards. They have this beautifully curated app, which will actually tell you, hey, you've earned so many points. Next coffee's on us. That's the kind of experience that payments now is offering, which is quite interesting to see. Now, Starbucks has taken it one step further. This is a collaboration that we've driven with them. They've actually integrated some of our solutions, such as the Assistant. And this is something that we announced actually very recently. It's an ability through the app to order your coffee via voice. And so we're starting to see a lot more integration of artificial intelligence. You may know that most of the products at Google are driven by artificial intelligence. If it's not Google Photos, where you can look up a hug, it's something like the Assistant that really tries to make the whole use of it much more intuitive. And so we're seeing some lovely examples that are emerging. Now, I could spend my time talking about incredible innovations in retail, but I have limited time. And we want to let the next speaker talk. But one of the most interesting developments is something that may seem quite mundane. It's the Payment Services Directive, number 2. So who here, raise your hands, has heard of the Payment Services Directive 2? All right, a lot more. Okay, more than the Starbucks app. All right, so Payment Services Directive, it's the second one, as you've seen. And this one's interesting. It's partially a compliance topic. So one of the big mandates is to make payments safer, both online and in store. And for that, retailers do have to prepare. There's a deadline coming up very soon. And it's the online piece that's been a bit of a puzzle to understand how you can make things safer, but also drive a good, in fact, a delightful user experience, hopefully. But there's another element to it which is quite interesting, and this is this part about innovation. So what Payment Services Directive does is it allows any licensed third party to access a user's payment details if the user, of course, consents, which means that banks have to open up. They have to offer APIs that allow these third parties access to payments information, which is quite revolutionary. And it really was created to drive innovation in the financial services space because it was felt that there was a need for that. Now, what it does, it actually means that retailers have several options now. They can, of course, they'll have to comply with some of the online payment aspects, but they can actually become payment service providers themselves. Some of them are doing that. They'll also see many more players in this space who are looking to develop new services around this. And that's what's interesting. We've seen some of the startups that we're talking earlier. We're going to see many more providers in payments that will drive some of this innovation that retailers can actually work alongside of. So it's actually quite an interesting space. Maybe to recap, we are seeing a perfect example of disruption where suddenly leapfrogging through technology is possible, and where the future, hopefully, will offer many more use cases for retailers to provide many, many better experiences for users. And with that, thank you very much.